Something's not right here.
Crime is up all over the state.
The homelessness in the city is out of control.
The economy is sick. Taxes are high.
Housing is expensive and businesses are leaving.
From Skid Row to the Tenderloin to the Bay Area and back down, California needs fixing. And John Phillips is just the man to lead the charge. It's the Fix California Hour with John Phillips and Randy Wang.
And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in Culver City.
John, Gavin Newsom came out with a very strange announcement this morning. 50% off of Claude AI for everybody. Who was asking for that?
50% off. What is he, Cal Worthington?
You know, why not get the whole state invested into this AI slop that's supposed to prop up our economy?
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton, Professor Barbara Stone. Welcome.
Happy Monday, John.
Well, happy Monday to you. Let's start out by talking about the results from the election last week in New York State that mirrored the results from the state of Maine that voted before them, mirrored the results of what we saw in the LA mayor's race here in California, and according to the polls, we should expect a similar result in Colorado when that state has their primaries, where the DSA is expected to have a very, very good night, and traditional Democrats are going to take it in the teeth.
Actually, I buy the theory, though I don't know that it's correct, that the overwhelming majority of the Democrat Party, including what passes for centrists, have let themselves be so eaten alive by hating Trump that not only did they encourage all sorts of things, think of Chuck Schumer standing in front of the Supreme Court going, the justices will pay or something like that, but that they encouraged and have put up with the most extreme rhetoric on the left because it comes out as anti-Trump. Well, when you do that, my dears, you're going to get yourself a bunch of wacko socialists. And that's what they're getting. And at this point, that's where all the enthusiasm in that party is. And, we'll see. It may be they take over. It may be they pay for it. I sincerely hope it means they pay for it.
Over the weekend, we saw a number of bold-faced names in the Democratic Party weigh in on this. And you have essentially two camps. You have one camp, let's say Jim Carville is the leader of, where he said, these people are nuts. I have nothing in common with them. There is a schism in the Democratic Party right now. They need to go off and do their own thing because I want no association with that. And then you have people like Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, who may or may not have plans to replace Chuck Schumer, who said this is where the energy is in our party right now, and we have to recognize that and we have to respond to it and be responsive to it. Which one do you think is going to win?
Chris Murphy. By the way, nobody is listening to Carville. The other Democrat voice like that I hear is John Fetterman, and for all intents and purposes, they've run him out of the party. John, Lord, I hope I'm wrong, because this country functions best if you have two functioning political parties. Europe can be torn apart by its extremes, but I really don't think it's good for us. I honestly believe that too many of what we would regard as establishment Democrats have gone along with this stuff. And I would call this stuff something that Randy would bleep, so I won't do it. But basically, their apples are in this cart, whether they know it or not, and some of them do, and they're not going to be happy with it. But the Carvilles of the world, first of all, no one listens to him anymore, as far as I can tell. And they just are trying to go, whoa, I know we countenanced this, I know we did this, but now we don't want them anymore. Too late, buddy. I hope, well, anyway, you get my idea.
When you look at these results, do you think, okay, there is a small percentage of the Democratic Party that is extremely active? They vote, they participate in online discussions, and most regular Democrats who are capitalist are just not participating in the process, but they still outnumber the nuts in that party? Or do you think the Democratic Party is now a socialist party? And I say that because there was a big data poll that came out that pollster Rich Barris put out that showed that when you ask Democratic voters what they consider themselves, only 15% said that they were a traditional liberal, which is small to my eye. 55% regarded themselves as a democratic socialist. And then you had 6% said, no, I'm just a straight up socialist. And you had 24% who were unsure.
That blows me away. And assuming that it's halfway accurate, we'll even take halfway accurate. Democratic Party is well on its way to becoming a socialist party. Now, for it to, how am I going to put it? From that point of view, this fall election makes a tremendous amount of difference. You notice most of them run in places where a Democrat can't lose. So you're not testing them in the broader context on the whole. The exception, by the way, appears to be Maine in that Senate race where the Nazi is running against Susan Collins. And that's potentially a pretty good test. Maine's a relatively liberal state. They want to get rid of Donald Trump, but they aren't real sure they want Nazis. And I just saw a poll there, have no idea how good it is. I didn't bother looking at details, but that had Plattner 2 points ahead of Susan Collins. For Susan Collins at this stage of the game, John, that is a really good poll. Usually, for reasons that escape me, Mainers won't say they're going to vote for her, and then they do. So in the places they could lose, the key for the future of the Democrat Party may be, do they lose or do they win those? In which case, no, we no longer have a viable second party.
If that poll is also true, that the Democratic Party is now a socialist party, that means the biggest cities in this country are going to be run by socialists, pretty much across the board.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And they're so competent. Now, we'll see if the world has moved on enough from the 1990s. Because remember, I think in those, you had a lot of these big cities going nuts also. You had David Dinkins in New York. And they were such disasters that you ended up the city switching to Rudy Giuliani. So it seems to me possible that will happen. The gal in Washington seems particularly feeble, but we'll see. And think of us as a country when all our big cities are run by those people. Dear Lord.
People think, okay, if there's balkanization going on in the country, it's red states versus blue states, but it really isn't. It's big cities and college towns versus everyone else. And
yes.
So you have these dynamics within red states. You have certainly conservative elements in blue states, and it's not going to be good for cohesion.
Well, on the other hand, if you had, how am I going to put this? If you let the rural areas, for example, in the West, do what they want to do, which is secede from places like California, Oregon, and Washington, and form their own rural state, that's not happening, but there are a bunch of people who want to do it, then you make the social cohesion less, not more. Because you leave all the nuts on the coast together and you let all the other people be together. And I think that makes it worse, John. I hate to say that, but I really do. Just like in this state where the Republican parties are Party as a non-entity. That's not healthy. In other states where the Republicans are the dominant party, that's not healthy either. And, really hope it doesn't happen, though I'm not about to say it can't.
What do you think moderate Democrats, and I'm not talking about electeds, I'm talking about voters, people who are in corporate America, people who own their own business, people who are in public safety, and they are a registered Democrat and they regard themselves as a political moderate, certainly not a socialist. If they're given the opportunity to vote for a socialist or a Republican, what do you think a lot of these people ultimately do?
Vote third party. Actually, I think the question should be, because you're talking ultimately, so you're talking a little in the future, and I think I'm telling you the truth here, but we'll find out. You need to take Donald Trump out of the equation. All right? For most of the people I know who are of the sort you're describing, they are not socialists. They should not be with socialists. In the ultimate time, I presume they won't want to be with socialists, but they absolutely cannot bring themselves to align themselves with Donald Trump. But he's only going to be president 2 more years. He will try to keep a hold on the party. We'll see how things go. But you need to move beyond Trump to get the answer to that question, which, by the way, also gives the socialists time to prove whether they can survive or whether they take over the party, in which case you may be right. It'll be an amazing readjustment. By the way, just for fun, I've recently been talking to a bunch of old people, of which I am one, and it's amazing the number of today's liberals of the sort you're talking about, not leftists, not progressives, not socialists, but today's liberals, so this is a function of California, all liked Ronald Reagan. When you talk about who did you think was a good president, they all think Ronald Reagan. And so that tells me at least that they're not hopeless, they're not totally nuts, and yes, they're there perhaps to be retrieved if the Democrat Party goes where it looks like it's going.
You've done a lot of research in your career on the John Birch Society, and that was another example of when you had an extreme out there element that tried to become part of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party explicitly said, we don't want an association with these people because they are certifiable, and I don't want anyone thinking that I am one of them, and I certainly don't want them in the room when the decisions are made.
That was the topic of my dissertation, and I did, in fact, talk to, I think it was 50 Birch members around the state. I had access, and I'm not going to tell you how I got it. John, they weren't all nuts. And as a matter of fact, while I'm quite sure the people I talked to were handpicked, you had much more educated people than you would think. They had much more rational people than you think, even though they did believe that the Illuminati were the beginning of our international conspiracy. You say they were nuts and the Republicans didn't want to be associated with them. Not quite. It was where, maybe it's like the left side of the Democrat Party as they began to go further and further in that direction till they got to the point where they were, Eisenhower, you know, was, of course, a communist fellow traveler. And when they began attacking Ronald Reagan, at that point is when they lost the Republicans around here. Translate that. Well, it's going to be interesting if the Democratic Socialists really do go after Hakeem Jeffries. Now, he's no Ronald Reagan, but in terms of the dynamics of that party as it's been operating, you go after what they think can be the first black speaker, it's going to be interesting. And if not him, there will be some other stuff. I don't know that the anti-Semitism will bite him, but it might. You saw where, Scott Wiener was harassed because he's Jewish, and couldn't stay at an LGBTQ parade up in Northern California. They're going to go after somebody that the core of the Democrat Party will wake up and go, hey, wait a minute, you're nuts. Or they'll take over, take your pick.
You mentioned the racial element. There's also an age element because you look at pictures of the No Kings protests, and there was a lot of gray hair out there, a lot of guys with gray ponytails, a lot of old ladies and walkers. That was the crowd that showed up to those protests. Yet you look at the victory parties in New York and Maine and other places where the DSA candidates have done quite well, and it's a lot of really young people, a lot of purple hair, a lot of piercings, a lot of tattoos, a very different crowd.
In fact, much more people who would have been far more comfortable rioting with the George Floyd people than doing No Kings. No Kings, as I told my friend who did it actually, you're purely performative. You're not going to change anything, but fine, I hope you have fun. And she did. But these people are far more serious, and I'm confident would prefer to be there at the peaceful protests in Minnesota over George Floyd than the other. These are very different people, yes, sir.
Gavin Newsom, who was opposed to the billionaire wealth confiscation tax here in California, now, after the results of these primaries, is saying, well, on second thought, what we need a billionaire wealth confiscation tax nationally. What do you make of his appeal to these people?
I don't think they will ever look at Gavin, but Gavin's trying hard. I'm laughing because, my heavens, boy, if he needs those people, he will not be successful. He'll lose to AOC. He might even lose to Kamala, who's an idiot, but at least she's black and a woman. But John, it is absolutely laughable. And it goes along with, now he's being persecuted by the Trump Justice Department, he and his wife. That's all about her. I've known about it for ages. It did not come from Washington. It came from a whistleblower out here. And I've heard for years that if anybody wanted to go look carefully at what he and she have done since he's been governor, it may not be illegal, but it sure as heck is corrupt.
I talked to someone about that, and I said, she comes from money. He has access to the Getty money. Why in the world would they have to risk everything for some small-time hustle? And the answer I was given was, they're not as rich as you think they are. Just because her family has money doesn't mean that she has it. And just because he has access to Getty investment funds doesn't mean that he has it on a day-to-day situation. And these two live high on the hog. They send their kids to very expensive schools. They spend a lot of money. So, yes, they do have to have hustles.
You know what? I buy that explanation 100% because it fits the facts as we see them. And you could partly say, oh, come on, you guys. Everybody in D.C. and Sacramento has hustles, and they've gone far enough. They have a big one. But I think what you're saying is probably much more accurate and would explain them. As I say, don't know if it's illegal, but I'm confident they're corrupt.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Thanks so much for stopping by.
My pleasure, John.
It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, starting later this week, you can actually watch us perform the show live.
We are moving to live video streaming every single day from noon to 3. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on Facebook. You'll be able to watch us, react to all the videos with us in real time, and comment and chat. And if your comments and chats are appropriate And funny, they might even go live on the screen. It's a whole new way to enjoy what we're doing every single day from noon to 3 and expanding to a much larger audience because, of course, we're here on AM 790 in Southern California. Of course, we're up in the Bay Area on 810 KSFO. And, of course, we are streaming live at KABC.com and KSFO.com on the radio. But this puts us in the social media stratosphere, and we're going to require you or need you to share the live feed with everyone you know so we can blow up the internet.
The Fix California Hour continues in moments. Don't you go anywhere. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. And right now, it's time for the California Crime Blotter.
It's happened yet again.
I see. Time for the California Crime Blotter.
And this edition takes us to the San Fernando Valley.
We go to Sherman Oaks specifically, where, thank goodness, a teenage boy noticed that a crazy homeless person in his neighborhood was starting fires. Otherwise, it could have been a lot more devastating than it was. For more on this, we go to a report from CBS LA.
Well, we start tonight in a Sherman Oaks neighborhood where video shows a man setting a fire near two homes overnight.
That was yesterday, but there was no damage and no injuries. It's all thanks to a teenager who jumped into action. CBS LA's Brittany Ehrman is live with video showing the entire...
Now, wait a minute. How did this happen? Because for a teenager to see someone starting a fire, that would mean they would have to take their eyes off their phone.
Believe it. It actually happened. It might be the only time that it will ever happen, but it happened.
And concerns now, Brittany, about safety and the homelessness in the neighborhood.
Well, Hunter and Leslie, this teen was in the right place at the right time. He tells me he was having a sleepover. That's the only reason why he was sleeping in the living room.
That's also the only reason he wasn't staring at his phone. He was doing something that teens don't usually do nowadays, having a conversation.
And he was able to hear the fire. Now, family members and neighbors are saying more has to be done to keep them safe. Video caught on a neighbor's security camera shows a person pushing a shopping cart, stopping near bushes in front of a Sherman Oaks home. Moments later, a fire sparks. Within seconds, the flames grow, spreading quickly through the dry brush off Hesby Street.
By the way, this is the city of Karen Bass and the council district of Nithya Raman. Your two choices for LA mayor in 2026.
And remember when George Gascon was DA and he told us not to come down too hard on the homeless for starting fires because they only do it to keep warm or to cook? Well, this person set a bush on fire in front of a house, and the purpose was not to cook. The purpose was not to keep warm. The purpose was destruction.
We got some wobbly knees allies.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. That was going back to 2021, maybe early 2022. And that was the last time there was a fire in the Palisades before the obvious one that we all remember in 2025. And George Gascon goes on ABC7 saying that, well, they were probably just trying to keep warm, even though it was shown that it was an arsonist.
Quite frankly.
And the press conference where the Palisades was on fire with then LA City Councilman Mike Bonin and Eric Garcetti is where this drop comes from.
I've received things on both ends.
Person in the video appears to notice the fire and then walk away.
I'm pretty sad, honestly. I don't really know how he did it.
Myron took a
drugs, kid. You're learning life lessons all night.
Specifically meth.
Chinko was sleeping on the couch around 3 in the morning when he realized something was wrong.
I heard like crackling and something like burning.
Then the 13-year-old sprang into action.
I was trying to think of the best thing to do, so I thought getting everyone out of the house was the priority.
He woke up his family and got everyone to safety. In the video, you can
Okay, this kid better get one hell of a summer vacation for mom and dad.
Oh, yeah. This is definitely Disney World worthy.
see them moving their cars out the fire's path. Then the child and his dad started fighting the flames.
I was filling up the pots and he was taking them and just making sure the fire wouldn't spread to our house.
Neighbors say the fire came within feet of several homes.
You know what, Johnny, you're right. We're completely uninsurable as long as the homeless go up and down the streets.
100%. Because if they file a claim, they're going to get dropped from their policy. This was not an act of God. This was not lightning striking the bush. This was not something that you had no control over. This was an act that was done on purpose by a crazy person living on the streets who shouldn't be there.
Horrified, because should that young man not have been awakened and called 911 when he did to get the fire department here? Who knows what would have happened.
Penny Johnson has 16 security cameras surrounding her home as the neighborhood watch captain.
Okay, that woman's got a story to tell.
16 cameras? Lucy and Desi only needed 3.
This is the definition of your neighborhood busybody, but it's a good thing we have them.
She says many residents have grown increasingly concerned about crimes tied to homelessness in the area, including recent incidents of vandalism.
So then that tells me that homelessness isn't down, like Karen Bass says, and homelessness in Sherman Oaks isn't down, like Nithya Raman says.
No, but again, it's not going to change until you change the way you vote. This district voted for Nithya Raman for council, and they voted for Nithya Raman for mayor.
Almost everybody on the block has kids, and they're scared. I just want the city council and the mayor to work together to get this problem solved.
Well, they're not going to do that. You think those two are talking the next 6 months?
Yeah, good luck, lady. Go buy a bag of marshmallows.
This family, what started as a terrifying wake-up call, ended with gratitude.
I feel like I'm really lucky that I woke up. I feel like my family's lucky and the neighborhood is.
You know, this might be the first time, especially in a Crime Blotter segment, that we have a teenage boy doing something great.
Do you think that family is going to stick around in Sherman Oaks, or do you think they're going to move to Orange County?
I would.
And neighbors tell me they're gathering video footage to try and figure out who this person is who they believe started the fire. I did reach out to LAFD to try to get more information about what happened here. I'm still waiting on that response. Live in Sherman Oaks tonight, Brittany Erman, CBS LA.
So there you go. The teenage boy who just happened to be sleeping in the living room that noticed that his front yard was on fire thanks to a homeless arsonist walking through the neighborhood with a shopping cart torching houses.
And no arrest made.
Nope, but at least the fire didn't go to the house.
That's true. All right, Randy, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
We couldn't make this stuff up if we tried.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
It's the California Crime Blotter.
And this edition involves illegal gambling.
This is a crazy story where you had police called about a hostage situation that turned into an illegal gambling raid. For more on this, we go to KTLA 5.
A 911 call about a possible hostage situation inside an abandoned building led to a massive LAPD response in Koreatown.
Yeah, but what officers discovered when they arrived there was something very different. Police say it turned out...
Now, wait a minute. Do you think it was an actual hostage situation, or if it was an illegal gambling hall, maybe they were playing pokers and someone said, he's holding 2 ladies?
You know what's very possible here is somebody got cheated by this illegal casino and decided to swat them.
That the building was actually...
Oh, you know what? You're going to play those kind of odds on your stupid gambling machine? I'm calling the cops on you. And they know that if they call the cops and say, oh, it's an illegal gambling operation, maybe they'll come. But if it's active hostage situation, the SWAT team's going to ram the door down.
Oh, they're coming down the chimney like Santa Claus.
actually housing an illegal gambling operation.
KTLA's Chris Wolf is live in Koreatown with more on that chaotic raid. Chris.
I do not understand in 2026 where you can gamble on your phone all you want with Kalshi, with DraftKings. You can go to the Morongo Casino in California. Hell, you can go to the card rooms. The Commerce Casino is not far. You can go to Vegas. What is the drive to go to the basement of somebody's house to get your fix?
And, okay, let's just assume for one moment that you hit the grand on Huff and Puff. You're not actually going to get the Ed McMahon style check. You're going to have some guy pull a gun on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Karine and Rick. This all began with 911 calls early this morning reporting a person being held against their will, possibly at gunpoint, at a location right here in Koreatown. Take a look behind me. It was that building across the street. The LAPD tells us.
Yeah, here's a new one. Apparently, we need to look at all of the empty for-lease buildings because they might not just be housing squatters, they might also be housing illegal casinos.
Okay, here's another question. Is the SWAT team ever used legitimately anymore, or is it always for sophomoric hijinks?
Good question.
When officers finally made entry, they discovered an illegal gambling operation. According to initial reports.
What do you think they had? A couple of slot machines, video poker, maybe just some dice?
Maybe baccarat.
More than 24 people were detained at the beginning of the investigation. 6 were eventually arrested.
And for a timeline, this is like 7 or 8 in the morning on a Sunday.
If you're spending your time at an illegal gambling hall at 7 in the morning on a Sunday, you need to reevaluate a lot of what you're doing with your life.
Put down all weapons, come out with your hands raised, and follow directions.
About 24 people detained. Another young man determined to escape.
Yeah, this is why we need to move to video, is because of stories like this. There is footage captured brilliantly by KTLA-5 of a shirtless man trying to rappel down the side of a building to avoid getting caught by the SWAT.
And I know that if it's just over the radio, you have a certain idea in your head as to what happens when a house gets swatted. And I know many of you are thinking, what's going on in there is it's Pete Buttigieg breastfeeding. That's not what's going on here at all.
That is a low blow, dude. That story is so messed up, I wouldn't joke about it. They're all running in, and they're all chasing after the guy who did not successfully rappel down the side of the building.
Poker chips everywhere.
Also, I'm very curious now. Why was the man at the illegal casino on a Sunday morning at 7 a.m. shirtless?
In Las Vegas, they require a shirt and shoes.
Maybe that's why you go. Or maybe, like a lot of these illegal gambling dens, it's also an illegal house of prostitution.
Could be that.
Someone held captive. Reports of a man with a gun. And police in heavy tactical gear storming an abandoned section of a building in Koreatown Saturday morning.
If you're wondering why you can't get the police to respond to your home break-in, it's because they got to send the full force out for stuff like this.
Do you think the cops just went in and out, or do you think they hung out and played some Keno?
The wild activity unfolded following 911 reports of a person being held against his or her will at a location near the intersection of 8th Street and Harvard Boulevard in Koreatown. Banners advertise the space for lease. The LAPD tells us
there are so many abandoned buildings in Los Angeles. I wonder what is in there. I want to know what it's in all of them.
But again, to a point that you made earlier, with all of the availability of legitimate gambling, where if you hit a jackpot, they have to pay you out or they lose their license. Why in the world would anyone ever game there?
Here's my new theory. It's because gambling is the headline, but gambling is not the only service that's offered. Because if you're looking to do rails of coke while playing poker and getting serviced by a prostitute, that's when you go to Koreatown.
Okay, but think about who gambles at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. It's little old ladies. Little old ladies aren't doing lines of coke and banging prostitutes.
I do not think there are little old ladies gambling at this illegal casino in Koreatown. And the fact that this happened at 7 in the morning actually proves my theory because they were up all night the night before.
That officers who entered the building discovered an illegal gambling operation, and that's when they detained several people. KTLA captured.
Actually, when you look at the people detained, you got all shapes and sizes, all genders. That's an interesting one. Although I'm going to guess some of those women were prostitutes.
And when you said all genders, you were talking about one specific person, correct?
A young shirtless man, apparently trying to avoid the commotion on the roof before he grabbed some kind of cable or wire and rappelled down the side of the building.
Now, did he have that cable there like as an emergency escape plan for when this place inevitably gets raided, or was this an improvisation?
I don't know. He seemed like a high Spider-Man there.
Before attempting to run to freedom. It didn't work.
Okay, I'm starting to get a clearer picture. Again, the video really helps in the situations like this. He was shirtless because he was trying to use the T-shirt to cover his face because he knew he was on camera. Not that bright.
To the person or persons who are hiding from the police, make your location known to us immediately.
Can you imagine if that's your wake-up call in K-Town on a Sunday?
That's when you got to move.
At last word, police were still looking for a man with a gun who 911 callers reported at the beginning of the mayhem. Reporting live in Koreatown, Chris Wolf, KTLA 5 News.
All right, Wolfie, we thank you for that.
So there you go. The crazy story of an illegal gambling bust in Koreatown that ended with a shirtless man trying to rappel down the side of a building unsuccessfully to escape.
What do you think he thought he would get out of that besides a broken leg? The building was surrounded by the SWAT team.
He wasn't necessarily in the smartest mindset. He was just trying to flee.
You would think someone who is such a chronic gambler that they're at an illegal gambling hall at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning would know those famous lyrics from the Kenny Rogers song, "You better know when to hold 'em and know when to fold 'em."
Well, he's an avid gambler. It means he likes taking all sorts of risks, including, let me see what the odds are that I can get away from the cops.
Well, have fun playing cribbage in jail. It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Lola in downtown L.A. Lola, hello.
Where do you think we have a Lola?
That's what it says on my list.
I don't have a Lola.
All right.
I have an email.
Lola.
When did Lola come? I mean, unless I'm looking at the screen right now. I don't have a Lola.
Maybe it's spam. I don't know, but it showed up on my phone.
I don't think we had a Lola. I've got a Joe in Santa Monica. That's it. I've also got
Lola
an email.
Was a showgirl. All right, what's in the email?
Carl writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. The majority of the patrons in the Garden Grove Asian gambling dens are simply there to smoke indoors, gamble, and talk with friends. The fact that all the waitresses are either in bikinis or with painted-on clothing is also a bonus. And the fact that it's likely walking distance from their home and there's no closing time.
You know, it's always something real positive when my hometown makes the news.
Yes, it's either illegal gambling dens or it's coffee houses that are pretty much strip clubs or it's imminent chemical explosion.
Now, this weekend, you and I ran in the 5K for the Union Rescue Mission, and we lived to tell about it.
It was the first 5K I have done in probably 10 years, and I ran for the whole first 2 miles and then power walked for the 3rd mile. But it was good. I had a great time out there. Team KABC representing with the Union Rescue Mission.
And to be clear, none of us got caught cheating.
We were very good.
Key phrase there is got caught. All right, we got one more hour to go right here on The John Phillips Show.